You got the letter, you saw the number go up. Then, around the third week of January, you found yourself wondering to a luxury, not to a vacation, just gone into the same bills. Pharmacy, grocery store, except somehow more expensive than last month, even though you were told you'd been taken care of. That moment, that quiet confusion, is what this video is structural, mathematical reason why your benefit can increase, and you who run the system know about it. It's not a glitch, not a mistake. It's a design feature, working as intended. Just understand the retirement income system at this level, not the surface version, but the actual mechanics. Subscribe to this channel exists to give people who depend on structured income the same quality of analysis financial professionals charge hundreds of dollars for. Subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it could change how you manage every dollar. Let's get into it. Every January, millions of Americans receive a Social Security COLA. For 2023, that adjustment was 8.7%. For 2024, it was 3.2%. These are dollars deposited into real accounts, and for most recipients, the letter confirming the increase arrives with a sense of the system responded, that inflation was acknowledged, that someone, somewhere, did the math and protected you. That feeling is understandable. It is also, in a very specific and measurable way, not entirely as the part they don't explain in the letter. The COLA is calculated using something called the CPI-W, Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. Read that name carefully. Urban wage earners, clerical workers, people who go to offices, people buying work clothes, commuting, paying for daycare, fueling cars for a daily commute. The spending habits of people who are actively employed. You are not that person, and neither are the roughly 70 million Americans who receive Social Security benefits. The index used to calculate your adjustment was built around a lifestyle categories like apparel, transportation, fuel, and recreation based on how working households spend money. It does not weight healthcare the way a 70-year-old actually spends. It does not weight prescription drugs the way someone managing multiple chronic conditions actually spends. It does not weight home heating and utility costs the way someone who is home all day actually spends. And here is where it gets precise. Researchers who have analyzed the actual spending patterns of older Americans have consistently found that the inflation they experience runs higher than what the CPI-W Labor Statistics even publishes an experimental alternative called the CPI-E, the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, specifically to measure this. Using that index show a persistent gap. Older Americans. The CPI-E is not the law. It is not what determines your benefit. It sits in a spreadsheet somewhere at the BLS. Academically interesting, politically inconvenient, and completely irrelevant to what hits your bank account each January. So, from the very first calculation, you are starting behind, and most people have show you exactly what this looks like in a real household. Not a hypothetical constructed to make a point. A realistic composite drawn from the actual financial patterns of retired Americans living on moderate fixed income. Her name is Dorothy. She's 73. She retired at 66 after working as a school administrative coordinator for 20 a mid-sized city in the Midwest. She receives Social Security of approximately $1,740 per month and a modest state pension of $420 combined monthly income, $2,160. She owns her home, no mortgage. She thought that was her 7% COLA took effect in January 2023. Dorothy's Social Security increased by roughly $151 per month. She felt it. She told her daughter it was the first time in years she felt like she had a little breathing room. Then February arrived. Her Medicare Part B premium had already been deducted from the new benefit amount that was expected. But her Medigap supplemental plan sent a renewal notice. Her premium was going up by $44 per month. Not because she used it more, because the insurer's cost base had increased. Because healthcare costs go up. That's her electric utility had filed a successful rate case and increased residential rates by 11%. Effective January, Dorothy's average monthly electric bill went from $118 to $131. $13 doesn't sound like much. Her property tax notice arrived in March. Her county had completed a revaluation cycle. Her assessed value increased. Her annual property tax bill went up by $340, which breaks down to about $28 per month. Her grocery bill, she kept meticulous records, was running approximately $65 higher per month than it had been in early same basic staples. She hadn't upgraded what she was buying. She had actually started buying store brands in categories where she previously hadn't. When Dorothy sat down in April and added up every increased expense, she could identify the Medigap premium, the utility rate increase, the property tax adjustment, the grocery differential. She came to $150, sometimes $160 in months when she needed a prescription refill. Her benefit had increased by $151. She broke even, in the best case, and that assumes she caught every increase, accounted for every dollar, and nothing else changed. In reality, things always change. A tire, a copay, a repair. Dorothy didn't feel like she had breathing room anymore. She felt exactly where she had felt the year before, right at the edge. And she couldn't understand why, because she had been told she received one of the largest COLA increases in 40 years. This is the gap. It is not dramatic. It does not arrive all at once. It does not announce itself. It is the slow, structural accumulation of expense increases that outpaced an adjustment mechanism that was never designed to fully protect you. And it compounds. This is the part people miss most consistently, and it matters more than almost anything else in understanding your long-term financial trajectory. Each year's COLA is applied to your existing benefit level. If your benefit increased slightly less than your expenses in year 1, your base going into year 2 is slightly lower than it should be. Year 2's adjustment starts from a position that's already behind. After 5 years, the compounding deficit is meaningful. After 10 years, it can be the difference between financial stability and persistent stress. This is why retirees who have been on Social Security for a decade sometimes feel more financial pressure than they did when they first retired, even though they've received annual adjustments every single year. The math has been quietly, consistently losing ground. And because it happens gradually, there's rarely a single moment that triggers alarm. There's just a slow tightening, a persistent sense that something is wrong, combined with an inability to identify a clear cause, because the cause is distributed across a dozen different bills, from a dozen different sources, none of which are labeled as the portion of inflation your benefit. Let's talk about something that almost nobody discusses when they talk about COLA. This is the secondary layer that takes financial pressure from uncomfortable to genuinely serious for a significant portion of retirees: the taxation of Social Security benefits. In 1983, Congress established a provision making a portion of Social Security benefits taxable for higher income recipients. In 1993, the thresholds were modified to their current form. Under current law, if your combined income exceeds $25,000 as a single filer, or $32,000 as a married couple filing jointly, up to 50% of your Social Security benefit becomes subject to federal income tax. Above $34,000 for single filers and $44,000 for joint filers, up to 85% becomes taxable. Now, here's the fact that should stop you cold. Those thresholds have not moved one single dollar since 1993. They are frozen in nominal terms. They are not indexed to inflation. They are not adjusted for COLA. They sit exactly where they were set over 30 years ago. Meanwhile, your Social Security benefit has increased every year with COLA. Your pension, if you have one, may have had its own adjustments. Prices have risen, which may have increased the value of any investment income you have. Everything in the income picture has moved. The only thing that hasn't moved is the line that determines when your benefit gets taxed. What this means in practice is that every year, as your benefit rises with COLA, more of it edges closer to or further past those thresholds. You did not receive a raise in any meaningful sense. The purchasing power of your benefit didn't increase, but your taxable income did, and your tax bill may have increased as a result. This is called bracket creep, or threshold creep, and it is one of the most effective and least visible mechanisms in the federal tax code. It quietly increases the tax burden on people who are not wealthy by any reasonable definition. A retiree with a Social Security benefit, a modest pension, and a small IRA distribution can easily find themselves well into the 85% taxable range, meaning 85 cents of every dollar of their Social Security benefit counts as taxable income, despite a total income that most people would not describe as affluent. The gross benefit went up with COLA. The net benefit, after federal taxes, may have gone up by considerably less, in some cases for retirees sitting just above a threshold. A COLA increase can trigger a tax increase that offsets much of the benefit gain. The adjustment that was supposed to help you can, through this mechanism, deliver significantly less than it appears to. This is not a theoretical edge case. based on Social Security Administration data. The majority of Social Security recipients have some portion of their benefit subject to federal income tax. This is the standard condition for moderate income retirees in the current environment. And because the thresholds haven't moved in 3 decades, that proportion has been growing every year automatically, silently, without any vote or announcement. This is exactly the kind of development that sounds technical until you realize it's coming directly out of your monthly income. Macro signal. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because we're going to keep tracking every one of these mechanisms, not to alarm you, but to make sure you have the information you need to protect what you've earned. So where does this leave you? Practically, what can you actually do with this? The first thing is to change how you think about the COLA letter when it arrives. Treat it not as a resolution but as an opening number in a negotiation with your own budget. The moment that letter arrives, typically in October, announcing the rate effective the following January, that is your signal to open your expense records. Do a deliberate line-by-line comparison. What did each major category cost this year versus last year? Healthcare premiums, utilities, property taxes, food. What does the announced COLA actually deliver in dollar terms? Is there a gap? How large? Knowing the size of the gap in October gives you November and December to make adjustments before the new year begins. That is a meaningful advantage over discovering the gap in March. The second practical step is to take Medicare open enrollment seriously, every single year, without exception. Open enrollment runs from October 15th through December 7th. During this window, you can change your Part D prescription drug plan, shift between Medicare Advantage and traditional Medicare, and review supplemental coverage options. Plans change their terms annually. The plan that was right for you 2 years ago may not be right for you now. Drug formularies change. Premiums shift. The free counseling available through the State Health Insurance Assistance Program SHIP exists precisely to help you navigate this. It is federally funded, available in every state, completely free, and consistently underutilized. One conversation with a SHIP counselor before December 7th could save you hundreds of dollars. The third step is to understand your combined income number with specificity. If you have a pension, IRA distributions, or investment income alongside Social Security, you need to know where you stand relative to those taxation thresholds. Not approximately, specifically. The difference between being $500 below a threshold and $500 above it can affect how much of your benefit is taxable. A tax professional specializing in retirement income can identify strategies to reduce taxable exposure without reducing actual income. This is not exotic planning. It is basic optimization many retirees never access because nobody told them to ask. The fourth step is to map your expenses into 2 categories: structurally fixed and genuinely flexible. Healthcare, housing costs, utilities, these are largely fixed. You cannot meaningfully reduce them. Subscriptions, dining, entertainment, discretionary purchases, these flex. Knowing the exact ratio gives financial resilience. A household where 90% of income is committed to fixed expenses has almost no buffer for cost spikes. A household with 15 to 20% in flexible categories has real room to absorb disruptions. If that ratio is currently too tight, knowing it clearly is the first step toward changing it. The fifth step applies specifically to people who have not yet claimed Social Security. The timing of your claim has compounding effects on your lifetime benefit level. A higher base benefit means each year's COLA delivers more in absolute dollars. Strategic considerations around claiming age involve health, other income sources, spousal benefits, and longevity expectations. The base benefit level you lock in at claim time is the foundation everything else builds on. Getting that decision right with professional input, not just online calculators, is a high-value financial decision. Now let's look at where this is heading, because the structural pressures are not easing in the near term. Social Security Trustees reports project trust funds face depletion within roughly a decade without legislative action. Incoming payroll tax revenue would cover approximately 75 to 80% of scheduled benefits. This is not a secret. It is published annually, and it is the context for discussions of improving COLA. In a fiscal environment where solvency is a central policy concern, structural improvements face significant headwinds. Shifting the COLA calculation from CPI-W to CPI-E, which would produce higher adjustments, has been proposed repeatedly. Indexing Social Security taxation thresholds for inflation would stop the silent bracket crew. Based on current legislative dynamics, Neither of these changes appears imminent. The structural gap between COLA adjustments and real retiree expenses is likely to persist. The people managing this gap most effectively have stopped waiting for the system to close it. They have built their own understanding of exactly where the pressure is coming from. That is not pessimism. That is accurate information. And accurate information is the foundation of good decisions. The retirees who feel most financially secure are rarely the ones with the most money. They are the ones who understand the system with the most precision. They know what their benefit actually delivers after taxes. They know which expenses track inflation. They know when to review their coverage and what questions to ask. They are not caught off guard by January. They are already prepared for it in October. That level of understanding is not complicated. It does not require a financial degree. It requires consistent access to clear, honest analysis of how these systems actually work, not how they are described in the press releases. That is what this channel is here for. If this breakdown gave you genuine clarity on something you've been feeling but couldn't fully explain, subscribe to Macro Signal right now. Hit the bell. Share this video with someone in your life who is navigating retirement income and deserves to understand what's actually happening to their money. We are going to keep tracking benefit policy, Medicare changes, tax system updates, and administrative shifts that affects people living on structured income. We don't sensationalize. We don't speculate. We explain clearly, completely, and before it affects your account. You earned those benefits. You deserve to understand every dollar of that. We'll see you in the next one.